So yesterday, a story broke yesterday. Oh, wait, it broke a year ago, and I got crap for reporting it. Whatever. Seth Wickersham, great reporter at ESPN, reports something we did a year ago, which is Caleb Williams' dad wasn't in love with the idea of his son being a Chicago Bear based on, history and the truth. And Caleb Williams, was considering his options, but eventually just said, I'll be a Bear. So, and here's the thing. This story broke yesterday when we were on the air, about midway through the show. All those concerns and all those Chicago Bears hurdles turned out to be true. So where you land, this, is 75% of the game for a quarterback. Go look at Matt Stafford. Easily the best high school quarterback in the country, best college quarterback. Had to go 13 years to really find Sean McVay. He was 74-90 in Detroit. First couple of years in Los Angeles, is he better than Aaron Rodgers? He's hoisting a trophy, beating Joe Burrow in the biggest game of the year. Go look at Jared Goff. 0 for 7 with defensive-minded Jeff Fisher. 1 year later, 11-4 with McVay and a passer rating in the hundreds. He looked like a bust. Sam Darnold, disaster with a defensive coach and the Jets. Some Adam Gase and, some offense, some defense, but where you land matters. Disaster in New York, struggled in Carolina, magical in Minnesota. Baker Mayfield. It's Hugh Jackson. It's Freddie Kitchens. It's Greg Williams. Then he finds McVay and he finds Liam Cohen. What do you know? Baker looks like a top 12 to 13 quarterback in the NFL. The bottom line in this stuff is if you start looking at your Bakers, if you start looking at Darnold, if you start looking at Goff, if you start looking at Stafford, if you start looking at all these guys, where you land matters. And that's what Caleb Williams was worried about. I mean, it's like if you were going to date a rock star and you were worried about infidelity and a wild lifestyle, that's not being cynical. That's not being skeptical. Those are legitimate concerns. Now, the good news is, and we talked about this yesterday, the good news is you can rebound. You couldn't 20 years ago. If you got stuck with your first coach, coaches, that may be it. That's it. There are so many now great young offensive minds, so many McVay copycats. Kevin O'Connell, Minnesota, they call him the tall Sean McVay. There are so many good offensive coaches that a Darnold or a Geno Smith or a Tua or a Jared Goff has a second chance. And I think Caleb got lucky. The Bears got rid, the front office, ownership got rid of the defensive head coach and the defensive staff. They got him potentially his Sean McVay. And I think Ben Johnson, much like Sean McVay or Sean Payton in Denver or Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, what's the first thing Ben Johnson did? Clean up the offensive line for his young quarterback, something Mike Tomlin can't do for the last decade. So I think it's going to turn out well. But I think all this stuff, ask yourself, when you were coming out of college, if I would have told you, there's this company that's going to choose you, they really like you, but they have a 100-year history of not getting your position right, would you not be concerned? So here's ESPN's Seth Wickersham, that story that broke during our show yesterday on Chicago radio, and then Ben Johnson too.
Seth, how close do you think the Williams family was to actually not being drafted by the Bears in some way, either getting out of it or having one of these plans come to fruition?
I mean, I think it was the gasoline's out. Do we want to light the match? And Caleb didn't want to light the match.
I see a chance for greatness here for him. He's been communicated that way, and he feels the same way. I don't know what's going on prior to him joining the organization, but he is very proud to be a Chicago Bear. That's what our conversations have included, and he's really excited to get to work right now and be the best version of himself for 2025. I'm excited. That's what makes coaching fun, is when the hiccups occur, when the adversity strikes, how do we respond to it? That's when you find out who you are as a man.
For the record, 1 year from now, Arch Manning. I just read a story about Arch Manning. He's put on 8 to 10 pounds or some muscle. He's really worked on his mechanics. Arch Manning is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And, if you asked him privately, where he'd want to go? The Rams, who have 2 first-round picks. But they're going to be too good. And they have Atlanta's first-round pick, and Atlanta probably wins a lot of games in the weak division, so they probably won't have the ammo to move up to get Arch Manning. Privately, though, that's where he wants to go. He would love to go to them, not Cleveland, who also has 2 first-round picks. It's nothing against Kevin Stefanski. But you got Pickett and Shador and Dylan Gabriel and Joe Flacco. It's a circus. Johnny Manziel, you passed on Mahomes. Like, it's a circus. So, like, it's, and I think everybody watching or listening to the show understands it. Sports can be incredibly cruel. The harder you work coming out of college as an athlete, the worst organization you often go to. Cross your fingers on Ben Johnson. I do think him activating the front office with the Bears and going heavy in O-line investments, Joe Tooney, Drew Dolman, is a great sign. First thing Sean Payton did in Denver for Bo Nix, get the O-line right. McVay, first thing he did from Jeff Fisher, Andrew Whitworth, left tackle from the Bengals. So that was the first thing he did. Let's go get the offensive line right. That bodes very well for Caleb Williams. But I have no problem with his dad's skepticism or his as well. I saw this former Steeler Ryan Clark came out, and I've always found this fascinating. Andy Reid and Bill Belichick got fired, but apparently Mike Tomlin is unfireable. Now, the Steelers have not fired. Remember, Chuck Noll retired. Bill Cowher retired. So they haven't fired a coach since the 60s. The Steelers with their head coaches are like the parents that stay married for the kids. Like, it's just not going to happen, right? So he says, I think Mike Tomlin's unfireable. I think he should control it, which nobody gets to control it. Pete Carroll didn't, Andy didn't, Belichick. Why is Tomlin different? I think his voice has run stale there. I agree. I think Mike, I just think it's time. So, I mean, if it takes you 7 to 8 years to fix the offensive line and you still can't get it right, and Pittsburgh still can't, and McVay and Andy Reid and Kevin O'Connell can do it in an off season, you're outdated. So they were 29th since 2019, the last 5 years. They are 29th in offensive touchdowns. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Only the Jets, Giants, and Panthers are worse. So it feels like, and they lost their left tackle, their star running back, and one of their receivers and a quarterback. So it's going to be a mess. So count me as somebody predicting the Steelers are not going to make the playoffs and not going to win a playoff game for the 9th consecutive year. And it's remarkable because you have Burrow and Lamar Jackson in your division, so you're seeing great quarterback play. I'll give Cleveland credit. They take swings. I don't agree with the swings, but they take swings. They're that's just not what Pittsburgh is. So I think it'll be the 9th season without winning a playoff game. The gold standard is the mold standard. We call them the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's just an outdated offense. It looks very 1990s. They can't figure the O-line out. But I've always found it weird. I don't think they would fire Mike Tomlin, but the idea that he couldn't be fired, we're firing Andy Reid and Bill Belichick. So Tom Landry got fired, but Pittsburgh just doesn't do that. And, and say this for Green Bay. Green Bay is a smaller market by far than Pittsburgh, and they've had to run coaches out. So I'm not anti-smaller market. In Green Bay, I'll make the argument Green Bay has done a better job in the last 25 years. They have drafted O-line and quarterback better than everybody. They never draft O-linemen in the first round, and they always have elite offensive lines or at least top 10 O-lines. So they do it right. Pittsburgh is they just feel really outdated. But for Ryan Clark to come out and say he's grown stale, I mean, that's this. And there may be some agreement in the building. I would not be surprised if the Rooneys haven't told Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, listen, if we're bad this year, to get a quarterback next year, you're safe. And I don't think that's generally a bad thing. But I don't know. I look at that schedule. Once again, it's got a really rough stretch. Aaron Rodgers, I think, makes them viable. But Aaron at this point is just not. I mean, I think with Aaron, they can win 9 games. I think without him, they win 6 to 7. I think Aaron's worth about a game, maybe 2. But I don't think a ton more. I think when you go to Pittsburgh, I think you're fighting a culture. And, you know, I don't think one of the things, if I was Aaron Rodgers, I would have to think about is you lost your left tackle. You don't do O-line right. I'm like 41. I don't want to get hit. I mean, one of the things when Brady went to New England, remember Peyton Manning went to Denver. They had the O-line right. Stafford to L.A. They had the O-line right. When Brady went to New England, what was their first draft, or went to Tampa? What was Tampa's first draft pick? Tristan Wirfs. They had to get the right tackle right. They had left tackle. They were okay. Very good interior. And then he wanted Gronk. So older quarterbacks don't want to get hit. And Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks get hit.